Okay, we got Fred Flights and Curt Mills. So, Curt, I'll start with you. The reporting times there's reporting that Witkoff is headed to Egypt to that resort there on the Red Sea, and where they're going to negotiate this or work out the terms of actual doing the transition. Israel sending one of their ambassador that's very close to Netanyahu. He's going. So it's the most senior level to do this. Plus, President Trump put out Truth Social that ordered Israel to stop bombing, right? Which is interesting that you got to order them, because once again, just like in the Iranian situation, they're going to continue to bombing until you tell them to stop, or in Trump's case, order them to stop. Netanyahu put up a post. Correct me if I'm wrong. Last night, basically conceding he was going to do this. The Times of Israel and the Jerusalem Post are both reporting that he ain't happy about it, but he feels that the people around him feel that Trump has him boxed in, and he's got to do this. However, correct me if I'm wrong. You just informed me he took it down overnight, and it's saying it was taken down by the author. His tweet showing that he was going to comply with this, sir.
That appears to be the case. I mean, this is from his office, so it's put out, like this just be like the White House's account. So it shows this, and it says it's down now. I don't think this is a grand surprise, because we can see who the Israeli Prime Minister's allies, what they've been saying late Friday night, early Saturday morning in Washington about this. They've been complaining about it. They've been saying the president has made a mistake. They said that no deal's been inked. They've been overtly threatening Hamas, which, not nice guys, but they are the people that want to do the deal. And it's very clear they're unhappy. Netanyahu doesn't have to say it. His surrogates in the media and in politics can say it. And Lindsey Graham, the president's good friend, and of course the unchallenged America First senator, he himself was whipping against the deal as soon as it was signed. You saw it in the president's West Wing address, or Oval Office address. He looks happy. And he highlighted a number of countries in the region, including Egypt, Qatar, Jordan, and on. And he did not single out Israel. So it appears to be a redux of really where we were before the summer, which is that the president was willing to work with everybody in the region, but Israel is not getting any special privileges. And we've seen this show before. Even before the president was sworn in, Witkoff did a deal that created a ceasefire in the war, and Israel broke it in March. No. And so this is another example of the president's instincts towards peace and not being a supplicant of a foreign power.
But look, here's and this falls directly on the shoulders of Lindsey Graham and Tel Aviv Levin and this crowd of Israel First. They brought this on because their promotion of Netanyahu and blind loyalty to Netanyahu and not what was best for Israel. Because you have a situation now, correct me if I'm wrong, you call it what you want, but this, and by the way, Hamas has to go through, remember, they're the franchisee of the Muslim Brotherhood. They have a tendency to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory all the time. Very tough to control, although presidents united, at least the Gulf Emirates and the Arabs, more than Lawrence of Arabia in this matter, and also the attack of Netanyahu on Qatar. And Qatar, I think, are terrible guys, right? They're the financiers of the Muslim Brotherhood. But what you have is Gaza is a proto-Palestinian state. You're going to have the Gulf Emirates, led by Qatar, finance this. No Palestinians are leaving. I think the way it reads, you're going to have an Arab security force, right? And obviously Hamas lays down their arms and all that, gives up their military operation. But you have you're going to have a proto-Palestinian state in Gaza, in the territory of Israel, number one. Number two, unlike the Israel First crowd was bragging the other day about Judea Samaria, it absolutely forbids any Israel takeover or intrusion with the settlers in Judea Samaria. So that's off the table. And they're talking about adding the Persians or the Iranians to the Abraham Accords. So the Greater Israel Project crashes and burns. Why? Because of the American sponsors of Netanyahu, and I told you this was going to happen, And now it's happened, okay? And they can spin it any way they want to spin it, and they can try to kill it any way they kill it. President Trump's not going to let this be killed. This was a masterstroke, a masterstroke. I've never seen anything. This is one of the most impressive turn of events I've ever seen from any president of the United States. It's incredible. This I almost put in the same level of Nixon in China. Not quite, but and of course President Trump's got a couple of things he's working on in Ukraine and with the CCP. But Curt, am I wrong in that? Is that the Israel First sponsors, cheerleaders, promoters led this? And you have to understand, Netanyahu's visit the other day was a humiliation. Let me be specific. It wasn't just his arrival, which was like an Uber driver picking up a fare with no color guard, etc. When Netanyahu came out and lied about what the apology was to Qatar, all I did was apologize for killing the security guy. The White House immediately put out that photograph of Netanyahu reading the document that was given to him by Witkoff and Kushner the day before, with a full apology, with the President of the United States holding the phone and giving him the look that only Trump can give you, and him like a vassal state reading the apology. And so finally, they are acting like a protectorate, and this is what President Trump has gone to. In the Israel First crowd, you have nobody to blame but yourself for this situation. You have a two-state solution. For all the people supported Israel for so many years and said, we can't have a two-state solution. You have you can call it anything you want. When you've got the Arabs financing it, when you have an Arab security force in Israel, on Gaza, that's the proto-Palestinian state. And when you have any involvement or any expansion to the West Bank or Judea, Samaria blocked, and you're going to add Iran to the President Trump's openly talking, I want to add them to the Abraham Accords. The Greater Israel Project is over. It crashed and burned because of the American sponsors that cheerleaded on Netanyahu and didn't take the warning from people who said, hey, if you keep doing this, you keep blindly backing this guy, it's all going to crash around you, and it has crashed around you. Now, Curt Mills, where am I wrong in that assessment, sir?
I don't think you're wrong on most of any of it. I would say the key reality is if it holds, which is always the boring answer on this. I spoke at some length with a longtime Israel-Palestinian negotiator late this week. And we were kind of going back and forth on it, and Tony Blair was all over this proposal, and so we were both kind of like, I don't know if this is really going to work. And then it sort of occurred to both of us that actually the Palestinians may call the Israelis bluff. Why not accept it? If this is actually a deal on offer, they can take it, and it's a pathway for them to potentially keep their lives and their people stay in their land. And sure enough, that's what happened, and the bluff was called, and the Israelis are utterly panicking. And people who don't share the perspective that I have, that the Israelis are asking for way too much, that the Israelis are trying to dominate our politics, that the Israelis will never stop if we don't stop them, frankly, they act like this came out of a void, this came out of nothing. The reality is that this has hijacked and sabotaged President Trump's presidency. This is all we are talking about. And as much as I like to talk about Middle East issues, it's not terribly great for the United States that all we are talking about is a foreign country's problem.
What I said at the National Conservative Convention, just like in the Seven Pillars of Wisdom, when the generals schooling T.E. Lawrence, he said, hey, the Middle East is a sideshow to the main event, the Western Front. And the Arab Revolt is a sideshow to a sideshow. That's exactly where we are today in American geopolitics. The Middle East is a sideshow, and the Israel situation is a sideshow to a sideshow.
No doubt.
What galls me is the cheerleaders who followed Netanyahu because he's doing it for his own political concerns, not for the defense of Israel. And now you are where you are. And don't get me wrong, Hamas are as bad as they get, right? The Muslim Brotherhood is as bad as they get, and Qatar's, I think, worse. But you got to face certain political and geopolitical and financial realities. Okay, short break. Curt Mills, observation, thoughts. I know you have a different perspective, but I also ask you for the probability along the general lines that we have today that this deal closes as is.
I think we're going to get a deal this weekend, base case. I put it over 50%. The president is excited about this. And I think the reality is that Hamas, it can't be two things at once. It can't be this all-powerful, all-menacing terrorist organization and a decimated military force that is a quote annoyance to the Arabs. The reality is Hamas has a few cards, to use the president's terminology, but basically the moderate wing of Hamas has been in control because the Israelis have assassinated them all in the last 2 years. And I think we are reaching up, days from the two-year anniversary of October 7th. And for the Israelis to basically sabotage yet another deal, I think would be really a bridge too far. I think we will have something inked, base case. I don't rule out that the Israelis could sabotage it before 6 p.m. on Sunday, but I think it is at this point unlikely because of how publicly happy President Trump is with the results here. And I think we will get something. And then the open questions will be, how does this look? How does this look? How does this look? But again, yes, the president may chair this board. And here's where I agree that he's got a lot of things going on. What are the U.S. interests in this region? I mean, we're talking about a pathway towards demilitarization of the most radical arm of the Palestinian cause. We're talking about something that has broad regional buy-in, and we're talking about a pathway towards ending wars in the region and getting the U.S. out militarily. I inclined to agree that something like Iran joining the Abraham Accords is unlikely. But that being said, ruling it out, I mean, the president's instincts here, he just moves the Overton window. Why not have a conversation like that? Why does it always have to be regime change, regime change, regime change? Iran's a complex country. I'm not really sure we should be picking winners and losers in any country, especially in the Middle
Oh,
East.
oh, oh.